Hi, I'm Carsten. I'm down from Vega. Just came up because I just can't pass up an opportunity to perform. I have a YouTube channel. I'm the Fifth Volt. That's my artist name anyway. I'm only doing this since last year, so I'm very, very new to synthesizers or music making at all. But ever since I had my synth, I had a lot of fun and tried to get as much out there as possible. This synthesizer is a new modular format from Germany. It's called the AE Modular system. It's not compatible with ELK, but there are interface possibilities. I will talk to that to anyone who wants to know later on, because I can't shut up about this. But I thought I'd start with a performance that I made for today, and then after the performance I'll just go through the different parts of it and explain which module is responsible for that and why did I make it like that, and maybe that's even interesting for you guys who are already old hands at all of this. And maybe you can come back to me and say, you know, you could have done it like that and it would have sounded better. So I'm always happy to for suggestions, okay? But let's get started. 9, That was it. Thank you, guys. That's a performance with many parts, obviously. So do you have an interest in just going through what each one of these is and how I get to there? And what are the modules that are involved in making those? So the first one that you heard was the counter. So that's this counter here. So this is a module in the system called Grains, which is there's actually a ULEK module very similar to that from Ginkgo Synthese, which you can program your own code. So it's basically an Arduino Nano, and you can put a USB cable in it and upload your own code. And this is the firmware that does a counter. There should be the option to reset it to 1, but it's a bit dodgy. It doesn't always work. So we were hearing, 900 something for whatever. But sometimes, especially when as an introduction, it's nice to have something weird. Sometimes, so a counter, actually that sounds a bit odd and sci-fi, works quite well. And to make that more interesting, I thought to put it through a WASP filter. The WASP filters are very, very nice. So let me just show you how that works. So this WASP filter, is the other one? Oh, this one. So there's a sweet spot there, which just sounds awesome. And what I really like is some modulation, so I would put an LFO in there to get to that sweet spot and just cycle through that. But then to make it even more sci-fi-like and weird and dystopian, I also have another modulator, which is a sample and hold. So basically random voltages attached to it. And then it really becomes kind of like a bit reduction, almost. So that's the first step. So for the modulation here, I'm using a matrix mixer. Matrix mixer, this is the very first third-party module for this AE Modular format that a guy in England made. And I don't know if you guys play with matrix mixers in your ULEK. I just find it so amazing to put 3 different modulation sources in and just mix them up in different ways. So here I have a very slow-moving LFO. And if I want more variation, I just put the sample and hold on top of it and get that a little bit.
And that's for modulating the WASP filter?
That's modulating the cutoff frequency from the WASP filter on one channel. That has, this matrix mixer has 3 input and 3 output channels.
So nothing's modulating the counter module, that's just...
No, that is a clock. The clock is coming, so I have one LFO as my master clock, and that just distributes everywhere, and I'm clocking that. So it's all in, so I could have the counter, and that should be in beat with the kick. So the next voice that came after that is this drone kind of thing. And this is a module called SawVox, which is kind of like a digital saw oscillator that's based on a program by Jan Ostman, who made this, he produced these chips that you can buy and create your own modules from them. And Robert, who builds these synths, has licensed that code and creates that. It's basically a dual saw that you can slightly detuned, and just makes for a great drone or background. And this guy is coming from a sequencer. So here I'm using a sequencer that goes through a quantizer. So the quantizer changed my life, right?
Made you sound good.
Exactly. Because I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know, I can't play scales, I can't remember chords and things like that. I don't have perfect pitch. So the quantizer at least makes everything in relation to each other okay.
Is it volt per octave?
Yes, it's volt per octave. Between 0 and 5 volts. So you're kind of missing a few. So I think if you attach a keyboard to that, I get about 2 octaves of good stable notes out of it. Everything beyond that gets sketchy.
Got the quantizer, don't worry about that.
Exactly. But the quantizer, I don't care. I think this is a Mixolydian scale. I have no idea what that means, but it sounded really good. I tried all the other scales and they didn't quite sound like that. I had a problem because I wanted in the performance to put the ELK Modular in it as well, but the ELK Modular does not have a Mixolydian scale on it. So I couldn't mix them up.
Dear core.
Dear core, please go. Anyway, so this is the Sawbox and there's nothing else on it, just the oscillator by itself and the sequencer, just going through that because I think it sounds amazing just by itself. After that I had the kick. So kick is always horrible with the reverb on. So at home when I record, I now actually take the drum section into a second audio channel and put that in my mixer without going through the reverb because I don't know, it's just always muddy. But here I only have the one cable, so you gotta live with it, sorry guys. This is a pure analog kick module. You can change the pitch. And a bit of drive, I think. Nice. And after that I added to that. So this is triggered by a trigger sequencer. So there's, in this format, there is a 16-step 4-channel trigger sequencer. So I can switch and have 4 channels of different sequences on. And obviously you can play with it on. So that's doing the kick drum. After that I had a bit of a more interesting rhythm section, which had a snare and a closed hi-hat. And this is a lo-fi digital drum kit. And this is being sequenced by the topograph, which is a Mutable Instruments grids clone. And you know, obviously you can change the occurrences of beats. For anyone who has the grids, you know how to do that. And I think the hi-hats are coming from my divider module. So that's a beat divider. So then we had the ARP thing going, this thing, or the sequence. Now this is coming from a wavetable module that is a collaboration between Tangible Waves and Paula Maddox from Modal Electronic, who used to be with Modal Electronics, not anymore. And it's a quite nice wavetable module. If I change the wavetable, I don't know, is that going on because of the filter? So different wavetables. And I'm scanning through the wavetable again with the matrix mixer with a slow-moving LFO, and then I added a little bit of chaos into it with the sample and hold as well. And this is going through a Nile filter, which is, you know, a bit wild, so you can really make that scream very easily. I've been using this as an oscillator often as well in the past. So you kind of noodle with that a little bit, and then there's another section which gets the wavetable without the filter, so bypassing the filter, and this time the matrix modulates not the filter, not the wavetable, but also the amplitude of that VCA. So it's this thing here. So the sample and hold here just gives that some randomness. So after that, I thought I need a lead sound. So I attached my keyboard, it's got MIDI and all of that, and I abused one of the MS-20 filters, which produce a wonderful sine wave when you put it in self-oscillating self-resonance mode. And I thought I would just play with that. And I even have a sequence here with that, but as you can hear, it's just never really in tune. And I played on for an hour, none of the settings, even with the quantizer and everything, it just didn't sound right. So I thought, in this performance, I just kind of, do wild sounds with it. So kind of to not show you that I'm unable to have this in tune, but now I'm spilling all the beats here. But this is what you can do in a performance, right? You can just fake it and say, that's the performance. And here's I wanted it like that, but yeah, actually that's just because I just couldn't tune it. But it sounds great, right? Still. After that, I thought to change things around, and I had the big bell sound. And this is another module, also a digital module called FMOS, which is a frequency modulated oscillator, also all digital, which is kind of a unit in itself, and you can change the multiplier, just like on an FM synth, right? You have only one algorithm, but you can change the depth and the pitch, obviously. And if you don't do the depth, the frequency modulation, you get a very dull sound. Still nice. So this just goes through VCA with a snappy envelope to make that go sound. After that, I had the Solina module, which is a string synthesizer, so just kind of a clone of the old Solina string. And it does have a CV input, but it's not quite working as volt per octave. So somehow you set the bass note or the root note, and then it does its own thing. With you go through these chords.
Is that a module that's
It's one similar in Euro. It's like it's really similar. It's like got really limited functionality like that, but it sounds super nice. Yeah,
that's right. It's playing chords. And you can change which chords they are, and you can change whether it's major or minor chords, whether you include the seventh or bass note, and just kind of play with that. And it has a CV input or a trigger input to advance the chord upwards and to advance chords downwards or decrease, devance. And the problem with that is that once you start from the first chord and advance all the way to the last chord, it stops and just plays that one chord. It doesn't loop around. So I actually have, in the performance, have to go in when I hear it stuck, just have to patch the cable from the LFO into the minus port, and then it goes down again. So when you saw me here going like this, that was because of that. And what's really cool about the Solina is, I think this sound fits really well. Which is another MS-20 filter. This time I actually spent a lot of time getting it somehow in tune to work with the Solina, which is easier because the Solina is wobbly in itself. Right? So you can have something that's shaky, match it much nicer. And this is another MS-20 filter that I've abused, and I dialed in 2 notes that would fit, and I can switch between them with this voltage control switch here. It's really just a control voltage coming from an attenuator. I just dialed in, that's the voltage that I want for this pitch. And then I put that into the switch here, and I have a latch button, where I can just switch it around, and just like on the theremin, that's what I really wanted to play. Just kind of turn down the volume, change the note, and turn it back up. And then turn down the volume, swap, new note. Right, so that's the idea here. And yeah, and then everything is going through the multi-FX module, which is kind of just gives me my reverb, and also gives me kind of a through the input level and master level as well to turn it all down. So this was the patch, how it works, the performance, and the AE Modular system.
Very good.
Every single one, so then you'll have to cancel that. But you know, I can get 90%. Yeah, I got some good PCBs.